Welcome to the E-commerce Momentum Podcast, where we focus on the people, the products, and the process of e-commerce selling today. Here's your host, Stephen Peterson.
Welcome to episode 003, Greg Murphy. Greg is a terrific guy. He's so unassuming, so humble, but he's a multi-million-dollar seller. All books, pretty much. He sells on Alibris, Abbey Books, but almost all Amazon. And today, still almost all merchant fulfilled. And that doesn't sound that big of a deal until you realize it's 15,000 books a month that they're shipping out. It's incredible when you think about it. So it's going to be a great podcast, but I do have to apologize for the audio quality. I've had trouble with a piece of software lately, and when I was talking with Greg, he's like, let me record it too, just in case. Well, sure enough, just in case happened, and I had to get the file from him, and he's on a Mac, I'm on a PC, to convert the data. I lost some of it, or quality, and so you're going to have to put up with it, because I think the content is so strong. He tells you everything. If you join his course, he tells you everything. You see how to scale your business step by step. And he gives so much information. This segment here, he talks about a family business. He's got his mom working for him. He's got a couple sisters working with him. He's got brothers-in-law, boyfriends, cousins. And he talks about how that happens sometimes, and sometimes the interesting Thanksgiving dinner conversations. He also talks about some non-traditional revenue streams, and I think we all would love to spend some time thinking about that. He demonstrates how he was able to get to that level where he can pull back and discuss those things and figure them out, and he's done very well with that. And finally, in this segment, he's going to talk about his startup and packing books and putting them in padded envelopes in his kitchen table. And then after the break, he gets into the scale that he's at now. So let's get into the podcast. Again, I apologize for the quality. Thanks. All right, I'm really excited today to be talking with my good friend Greg Murphy, and Greg is a book master. I'm going to call him the master of all books. He just blew me away one night when we were sitting there chatting, and I couldn't take and process the whole. I mean, the things that you do. It's just so exciting. So I'm really excited. Greg, welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. I'm really happy to be here with you. This is really exciting for me as well.
Well, yeah, I know Greg's a very humble individual, but it's just so impressive to see. One of the things, and I'm going to jump right in here and make a comment. Greg has a group, 7-figure book sales, where he has a course and that kind of thing. And I've been nosing around it maybe the last week or so. And your genuineness is everywhere in this site. I'm just blown away how genuine and caring by the questions people asking, the comfort level that you're answering them. Very genuine. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really what we thought. When I decided to get into producing, to putting out content for people, I said, for me, the only thing that I want to do, the only way that I would do this is if I could just say everything. I was only going to do it if I could just be completely upfront and honest. And in my opinion, I don't feel threatened by letting other people know. Anyone that knows me locally, or just anyone at all, knows that I love talking about my business. I'll talk about it all day long. So I'm not threatened at all by that. And I said, well, look, I'll tell these guys everything. They're paying me their hard-earned money. I'm going to tell them everything except for the phone number of the guys that I get my books from.
That's great. Now, you are truly a family business. Now, tell me what family members are involved in your business.
Okay. Just about everybody's related to me in some way. My stepmother does all of the books. When I say books, I mean like the accounting.
Oh, okay.
My sister Ashley, she's the shop manager. My sister Krista, she does basically she's our textbook guru. She spends almost 8 hours a day, every day, just pricing and listing textbooks for sale. Her boyfriend Angus, he runs production. He runs our line. We have a Gaylord dumper and a conveyor belt, and we're running through about 10 tons a day. And it's his job to make sure all the guys are doing their job. And my cousin lists books. My cousin Shannon lists books. My cousin Max runs the forklift, makes sure all the loads come in and out, and all the trains are running on time. And that's about it. My little brother worked for me for a long time, but we recently let him go. He's 18 and knows everything, like every 18-year-old. So,
Yeah, been there, done that one. That's great, though. What a neat environment. Probably makes Thanksgiving dinner kind of interesting, huh?
It does. We have to make sure not to talk shop. My wife, we have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and so my wife was around. She helped me start the business, but she hasn't really been around it a lot lately. She's a stay-at-home mom, so she has enough to deal with. And then, so she kind of gets a little frustrated sometimes when the family all gets together and we're all talking shop.
Oh, I'm sure. So, that's a great lead into, how did you get into this business?
Well, we were broke. My wife and I, we were dating at the time, and we were, I think it was my senior year at Wright State, and we were incredibly broke. And my Dana, my wife now, she was selling her clothes on eBay, and that's how like really really broke we were. And so we looked and saw that I had textbooks, my econ textbooks that I kept for reference because, you guys know that the bookstore, they never give you hardly anything back for the books. So I kept them as references, and I found out, well, hey, these are selling $30, $40, $50 online. So we started listing those books on Amazon and actually did okay. And then I got a stipend check for, I don't know, I don't remember I'm not 100% sure if I was from my first year in graduate school or not, but I got a stipend for like $1,200 or $1,500 that was supposed to pay for my rent and food and stuff for 3 months. And I said, babe, I think I should just spend all this money on books. I want to buy textbooks with this. And she was like, no, definitely don't do that. And I did it anyway, which was a mistake. But I just got lucky that we were it was a time of the year where, textbooks are very seasonal. So it was a time of the year where textbook prices were really high. And so I bought like 100 of these accounting books for $30 a piece and then sold them all for like 80 or $90. Which if I was to do that most of the year, I would have lost my butt. I just got lucky. And from there, I just built it, one book at a time. And then we started going in bulk a couple years later.
What's your degree in?
Well, my undergraduate is in economics, and I'm about 2 classes away from getting a dual master's degree, an MBA in economics, and a master's of sciences in economics.
Ah, now I get it. Now it makes perfect sense. I knew there was a very strong formal education there when I was talking with you. I'm thinking, wow, this book guy sure knows what he's talking about. That's great. You generate revenue on multiple areas. So I know that you sell on Amazon and you sell on a couple other smaller channels, but you generate revenue. I mean, everything's recycled. I mean, it just blows my mind. And I think that was the thing that, this podcast, we're really talking about process. You're like the king of process. You have a process for everything. There were a couple things that really struck me. One, when you originally told me you had and I think I saw a picture where you were slicing off the books that were going to get recycled. You were slicing off the book covers, the edges, and then the book covers. And then I remember hearing you say somewhere, hey, I got rid of that machine. I got out of that process because it wasn't, what we do. It wasn't our core. And so I'm interested to hear the different revenue streams that you have. And then I definitely want to dig into the process of it all.
Certainly. The vast majority of our revenue, over 90%, I would say, 85 to 90%, I would say, of our revenue comes from Amazon.com. That's if we could get away from that being the case, I certainly would love to. But as of today, the big lion's share of our revenue comes from Amazon. We do a lot of our books are merchant fulfilled right now. We're thinking about transferring to FBA, but textbooks, we do send a lot of textbooks to FBA. But about 85-90% of our revenue is Amazon. We get a lot of money from our recycling as well. We also do some wholesale stuff. We have wholesale buyers of our material, and both in terms of different types of wholesalers. And I think that's about it. That's basically all of our revenue. I mean, in the core business, now we're getting into some info products and things like that. But I don't think that's really, in terms of our core business, that's about all of our revenue.
And you're expecting to double revenue this year is what you're looking at.
That's what it's looking like, yeah.
And I saw a picture of your shipping, and it was a Saturday or a Sunday. You and I were chatting maybe a week or so ago, and you had 900 merchant fulfill orders to send out that Monday. Is that a normal weekend for you?
And lately it is. We sell penny books, which we sell, I think 50 or 60, 75, something like that a day of penny books, and then so I mean that's getting the count up there a little bit higher than normal, but yeah, we do about 300 or so a day on a normal day. But lately it's been 400 and 500 a day, just because things are just picking up. We just hit that critical mass.
And so is it a function that you have more inventory to sell and you've gotten it streamlined, or is it a function of Amazon is expanding, or is it a function of both?
I've thought about that a lot in the last couple of weeks, because we're tracking, like 150% year over year these last few weeks. And although we have grown, we're buying more material, it's just sort of exploded recently. And I'm thinking that either a good bit of it is textbooks, but we don't have the analytics, we don't have any proprietary software, so we use just one of those out of the box systems like Needle Scan Inventory Manager is what we use. So we don't have the heavy duty analytics to say, all right, X% is textbooks, X% is this, that, or the other. And for me, so I don't really know, but yeah, it's trending way higher than I would think. And maybe we're just hitting this critical mass, or maybe textbook season starts earlier. Maybe we just have so many now that we're doing incredible numbers these last few weeks.
I think you had mentioned to me one time you were doing upwards of 13,000 to 15,000 transactions
a month. Yeah,
that's
yes.
Incredible. And if a good portion of them being merchant fulfilled, the process that you use today clearly wasn't the process you used when you started out. And could you take us through a little bit of that evolution? You don't have to get in complete detail, but just maybe a milestone or two to say, I was doing this, and I was using, for example, I'll make it really dumb to my level, padded envelopes in the beginning, and then we got the cardboard book wrappers, and now we have a machine or whatever. So just a little brief where you started and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, actually, when we very first started, we were the knuckleheads that would actually go to Walmart and buy the bubble mailers one at a time for like $2 a piece. So that's, yeah, and then you just take them home, and we would print out the label on a regular printer and then tape it to the bubble mailer. So I think that's basically how everybody starts, until you realize, wow, there's way cheaper shipping options than that.
That's funny. I can relate to that completely. So I assume that you're not doing that now. I assume that you've figured out how to make that a little more structured. If I'm going to hold that till after the break, because I do want to get to that, what really separated everything. But up until that point, right? So now you've had massive success. You've got a lot of people you can rely on. It allows you to step out of the business. But on the way, you must have hit some pretty big struggles, some real issues that you came across. Can you take one and help us get to understand something that you were able to come up against?
Yeah, certainly. One of the biggest issues as a small business grows is your time, like your personal time in the day, that you can only do so much, and obviously you're going to be better at everything than the people that you hire, because it's your baby. You know this. You brought it into the world. It's doing what you want it to do, and so you're going to be best at everything. So obviously, logic tells us then that we should do everything. And so that's what a lot of entrepreneurs goof up with in the beginning, just like I did, where I thought I had to be doing everything all the time. I was working way too much. 16, 18 hours a day. We had the business in our home. I would get up in the middle of the night to process orders. It was awful. And really, very, very quickly, what I did is I realized that, look, I can't do everything, so I got to figure out what makes us the most money and focus on that. Another big issue, more recently, is had to do with just basically we had to decide to purchase equipment. You get to a point where if you want to move in bulk or you want to grow your business, you have to invest in some equipment or some people. And so really, no matter how much data you have, you just have to say, well, look, I believe in me, and I know that I have to take this step, and I have to take a step off this cliff and know that I have enough faith in myself that I'll figure it out. There's nothing else but that. No matter how much data you have in front of you, you're walking into a place where no one else is.
That's great. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear how you process 15,000 books a month. Okay? So hold on, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Today's podcast is brought to you by Seller Essentials, essential business solution for online sellers. Whether you sell general merchandise on Amazon or eBay, private label your own product, or if your focus is selling books, wholesale products, or liquidation lots, let Seller Essentials be your online resource for all things e-commerce. Essential resources, essential solutions, Seller Essentials, the Internet's premier venue for online professional. Visit selleressentials.com for more information. That's selleressentials.com. Before we jump back into the podcast, I want to talk for a second about some of this segment. Listen to the details that Greg talks about when he breaks down his steps. Try to count the steps. There's just so many, and how well thought out they are. I like to call those touch points. And I think when you look at the touch points in your business, you start evaluating whether they're necessary, whether you can improve each, and how many there are. You can start to figure out better ways to adjust your business. And he's done that process, and I think it's really worth listening to. Another thing he talks about is being satisfied with good enough. The enemy of good is perfect, if you've ever heard that phrase. You'll never achieve it, so you're going to get stuck trying. So I think the way he describes it really is really pretty strong. He also talks about relying on employees more, actively engaging them, and that in turn makes them smarter. It's just such common sense when you think about it, yet if you're like me, you're a micromanager. You want to be in those details. You want to be involved in every one of those decisions. He's engaged his employees. He's given them the ability, empowered them, I guess is the better phrase, and they've gotten smarter and demonstrated that, and that's allowed him to back out. He also talks about using meetups and seminars because, and this is interesting when he described this, he said running a business is a very lonely thing. You want to have people you can talk with, and your employees are going to look at the business from a different perspective that you do. And so he's using these meetups and different places to find people that are his level he can talk with. I think that's a really good piece of advice. And stay tuned to the end because his tip of the day is so actionable. I think it's going to bring you success. Let's get back to the podcast. All right, we're back. And we're speaking with Greg Murphy. And Greg is telling us a story about started in his house, started out with, bubble mailers, did the whole manual process. And I think quite frankly, you have to go through. I see a lot of people wanting to jump to your level, and you can never get there without the pain of putting them in a padded mailer and learning that going to the post office stinks and all those different things. You got to learn that stuff. But you've now taken it to levels that, most people can't even fathom. I've seen some of the pictures. I'm just blown away. The equipment, and so you've made a lot of smart decisions, and I'm sure you made some dumb ones, right? But you made a lot of smart decisions, and I guess you just have to make a few more smart than dumb. And it's really allowed you to handle a volume of 15,000. And I bet you that's not your peak. That's probably your average. How do you get there? And take us how you got from the bubble mailer to that. That piece, I think, is important for people who are in that process saying, I need to be there. I need to buy this equipment. I need to buy this machine. Do they?
Well, I mean, you don't not until not until you know books. So one of the things that really bummed me out about we released the 7-figure book sales, the advanced product to teach people to take their book business from small to large, and I did a poor job of marketing it to the beta class, because there were some people that were taking it that should have been taking it, that had no background in books at all, and they spent I got them really excited about it, and before they were really informed, they spent a lot of money and made a whole lot of big mistakes, and I just felt awful about it. Like they would, one of the guys bought a forklift and rented warehouse space before he even had ever processed a book. And I mean, I just felt terrible about that. But what you have to make sure is that you have to be able to crawl before you can walk. And what I try to make sure when I talk to people is, look, you have to know books, or have a lot of money to lose. One of those two things, right? Either you have a whole lot of money to fund your education, or you have to know books. You have to have that down before you try to move into bulk. Because what bulk really does is it accelerates and makes more expensive all your mistakes. But it also accelerates and makes more profitable your strengths as well. So that's really something that you have to understand it as you go into bulk. For us, when we went from the bubble mailers and the patent, we still use those for some high dollar items, but we don't use them from Walmart. We have a local supplier that, we were paying $2 a piece. Now we're paying 18, 17 cents a piece. So you cut your cost by 90-something%. It's going to save you a whole lot of money. So we do that. We also have these mailers that are on rolls. If you want, I can send you some pictures after this, and you can put them in the show notes, or however you're gonna do it. But we have rolls of bags that basically, we scan the book, the tag, the label prints out on the printer. We put it in the bag, in a roll of bags, and then we seal it by pushing a button. It automatically seals the bag. We throw the label on it, throw it in a Gaylord, and the shipper comes at the end of the day and picks up a Gaylord of books.
No kidding. That now you've been in business for 5 years. How long did it take you to get from the padded mailers in the house to this point? I mean, work backwards a little bit. Where did you see? Was it the end of year 1, the year 2, year 3? Where was it where you made that comfort switch and said, okay, I really have that? I know you said you had that, but what point in that 5 years was it?
Well, we bought it, I think, 2 years ago. And honestly, and in terms of the mail, one of the reasons that we didn't, I knew it's something that I wanted before that, but actually my father-in-law did the mail at our company for a long time. In fact, he stopped working for our company on my birthday of last year. It just didn't work out. And so really, he didn't really have much to do at Murph Books outside of the mail. So I wasn't working on making that maybe cutting edge, because if I did, he wouldn't really have much else to do.
And that does make Thanksgiving more uncomfortable. I get that one. Yeah,
certainly does.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But outside of that, when we really started to go into bulk heavy was the end of our 3rd year. Is when we started to go into bulk heavy. And I was, at the time, I was buying a truckload a month from a supplier that really was hosing me. I was paying about 3 times market prices for the material. I didn't know it, obviously. And then when I lost that source, I really didn't have any other place to get books, when I really realized how, he mistreated me pretty badly. And I was like, well, look, I have, half a dozen guys here that have to take care of their families, and I know I can make a living myself going out and buying books one at a time, but I got these guys are counting on me to feed their kids, so I got to figure this out. So I went ahead and I found more local sources, and I figured out what the pricing should be for the material. And after that, now, I mean, we have it down where, I mean, I could double the amount of material that I buy with a week and a half of work. I just don't have the space and the ability to process that much material. Getting books is not at all hard once you start doing bulk and you start building relationships.
And again, it is not a thing that you jump into lightly. It is not something that you just go out and buy all this equipment and feel like you immediately have to get to that level. And I think that is one of the things that I see, and I'm assuming you probably, you said you've seen it in your group, is, people want from here to there, and they think that it's a straight line. There's no way. There's nothing that's been a straight line in my life. It's been a twisty, windy road, lots of turns and lots of U-turns. And I think that that's just so important for people to understand, that it's okay to start on something and just the turtle wins every single time.
That's 100% true. That's 100% true. For me, I mean, I call it like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. I'm happy to fail, like a lot, because I know, look, I tried that, it didn't work, let's go ahead. So I'm failing is, to me, is terrific, because now I tried that, it didn't work, I can scratch that off, I don't have to worry about going down that road anymore. I went down enough to know it wasn't for me.
That's great. You have a lot of strengths. I mean, you clearly have a lot of knowledge. You have a lot of just a lot of this process figured out. Would you say that's your biggest strength, or what would you say your biggest strength is as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say it is the processes, but I think going along with that is that I'm very comfortable looking at the big picture. I'm very comfortable outsourcing the things that aren't mission critical. I'm very comfortable creating processes. And honestly, I did not start that way. The big deal for me, it was like, well, how can I disentangle myself from this briar patch? Like, how can I get out of here? How can I not have this eat up 18 hours of my day? I mean, when my wife had my daughter, I mean, that was I can't work 18 hours a day anymore. So I had to figure out ways to get myself out of it and say, well, look, I know that nobody's as good as this is me, right? Because I built the whole thing myself. So if I can get 80% of the results with maybe 5% of the time I'm putting into it, that's a good bargain to me. So that's so creating processes, that's only able to happen if you can just look at the big picture.
Man, oh man, this is good. You got to have a weakness. What is it?
Plenty.
Come on, give it. What is it?
Here's the biggest one: is I am not at all a details guy. Not at all. And I mean, we've had things. My wife used to handle the bills at the shop, and before my mom started doing it, like our water would get shut off. Like we had our internet get shut down, which is kind of a big deal. If you run an Amazon business, you have to have the internet. And like I just wouldn't pay bills. I just would. I mean, and I put a lot of faith. And the good news about that is that those kind of weaknesses are not very hard to overcome if you're willing to outsource it, right? If you're willing to let employees take care of some of that. And so I find out that really employees get smarter the more you rely on them.
Yeah.
Right? Because the trick is that, they start to feel engaged. And I say, look, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to be on top of the finances. I'm just not. I know roughly what comes in and out. And as long as the number in the bank gets bigger, I'm doing good. Right? So in terms of processes, I'm good at that. But in terms of the details, the day-to-day stuff, it doesn't keep my attention. I honestly think I have ADD. Legitimately medically, I really think that's true. So details don't stick with me sometimes.
these are real common traits. Let me just tell you, after doing several of these interviews, you're speaking some of the same language.
Well, I'm glad to know I'm not by myself.
No, you're definitely not by yourself. Trust me, I'm a little guilty myself. So anything that you're struggling with right now, just something that you're saying, I haven't figured that out, and you're working it through.
Yeah, we're struggling with capacity problems right now. We're trying. I tried to run 2 shifts. We have a conveyor line. It's about 30 feet, and we can handle about 10 tons of salvage material a day, which is a lot. But I mean, I have opportunities to buy much more than that, but I just can't because we just can't go through with it. We just can't go through that much material. And I've tried to run a second shift because, me thinking like an economist, well, we have this capital that's not being utilized, so we should utilize this extra capital here, this capital equipment. We should run the line for more hours during the day. Come to find out, my sisters don't like to work second or third shift. So we have to, there's a lot going on. We're trying, and so the people that are running the crew, they might not be doing the best job. And so now we have a day crew that's doing 10 tons a day, and I'm spending the same amount of money on a night crew that's doing 4 or 5 tons a day. So we got rid of that, and now I'm trying to decide about making the investment in just additional equipment. So now I'm looking at a $20,000 purchase in the next few weeks to decide, hey, if we can double our output, I'm pretty comfortable in scaling up. But it just burns me that we have all this equipment just sitting idle 16 hours a day.
Well, I understand that, especially that expensive.
Right.
So now let me get to, we don't have that much more to go, but I do want to make sure I get some of these in here. It doesn't sound to me like you had the fear to go into entrepreneurship, which I think a lot of people would have that fear. Did you, or is it really just your nature that you're just willing to jump head on?
It really isn't. It wasn't my nature, and I've thought about this a lot because I didn't graduate. I didn't get my undergraduate degree until I was 28 years old. I did a lot of things. I was a bartender. I dealt poker in Las Vegas for a while. I was just floating around from here to there for a long time, and I honestly don't think I would have done this if in 2009 and 2010, the economy wasn't so horrible, because we're graduating, and you're graduating, you're going to grad school during a really scary time. I mean, it hasn't been that long. I mean, we remember those were pretty dark days. And so really I had to feed myself and my wife, we had to, and so really that's what it was about. And then I realized, well, hey, this is just like all those computer games I played. You play World of Warcraft or like the Civilization games where you turn this resource into this resource that's a little bit better. And so you can make money that way. And honestly, it was just a game at first. And I just got better at it over time. I wasn't the kid that was, like Chris Green and those guys that were selling blow pops in middle school, just hustling, buying for $1, selling for $2. That wasn't me.
I love it. So there was some fear. What's the best advice you ever received?
Yeah, the best advice. I mean, I know you're a Gary Vaynerchuk guy. I know that you like him, but the big thing that and I've been doing it for a while, but just to know that it was okay, was to say, look, just bet on your strengths 100% and just don't really care about what you're not good at. And so I would do that, but I felt for a long time like it was just because I was lazy. Like I wouldn't do the things that I sucked at because I was just lazy. And part of that's true, but doubling down on what you're great at, and just give myself the permission to do that has been terrific for my business.
Now, you were at a seminar not that long ago, meetup, and I know you're going to one in September. Have you started doing? Did you get something from that? Has that been something you started doing more of?
I would love to be. I'd love to go to way more. I love the people. It's great to be around colleagues, you know. I mean, it's really lonely running a business. Even when you have a dozen employees, they don't have the same mindset that you do. And so I love it. It's definitely really, really edifying, but it's hard. It's a lot of times it's really hard to get away. But yeah, I always learn way more than I feel that I give at those kinds of places. You know, if you can take one idea and twist it just a little bit, it can add significantly to your bottom line.
Absolutely. Are you listening to any podcasts, or do you have any books you could recommend for our listeners trying to move themselves from, you know, level 1 to level 2 or level 2 to 3, you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I love you know, Pat Flynn, the Smart Passive Income podcast. That's one that I really, really listen to all the time. Obviously, the Ask Gary Vee show, his stuff there. My favorite book of all time is The 4 Hour Work Week. It's a little bit dated now, but just the idea that, you know, that you can, if you want to, change your life to where, I'm to where, you know, you can work 4 hours a week or less, even if you wanted to. You can create systems that you don't have to be there to not only work in the train. You don't have to be there to. You don't have to make sure that they get there on time. You can pay somebody else to do that too.
That's great. That's great. It's a great book. He's got a TV show out now, which is
I know. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Really, yeah, I'm really interested in that. Okay, Greg, what we're looking for here is we're looking for this one idea, one quick achievable process improvement that our listeners can put into place no matter what their scale is tomorrow. Something they could go and say, oh, man, I got to go do that, and they can see an improvement. Give us one.
Yeah, it's going to sound pretty simple, but what I would do is, and this really helped me when I did it, is think about everything during the day that you spend your time on, when you're working, or even quote working, you know, everything you spend your time on, and then focus on what's actually bringing in revenue. I think that's going to be a lot less time during your workday than you think. There's a lot of things that we do that don't actually generate any revenue. You know, a lot of time we're playing on Facebook, or we're making plans for the future, you know, 6 months, 18 months in the future. And we're doing all sorts of things, making sure our website is pretty enough, making sure everything looks nice enough, making sure that, you know, your warehouse has all the pretty office furniture and all that stuff, instead of focus on what's actually making money, right? So that would be, figure out what you're doing during the day that's bringing you revenue, and just go all in, all your chips on that. Focus as much time as you can on actually producing revenue. The rest of it can either wait, or you can hire other people to do that.
That's great. That is absolutely actionable, and it's not that hard to do.
When I first started, you know, one of the things, I only had one day a week really to work on, to actually get books for my business. When I started, I had a fiance, so I had to feed us. And so I said, well, look, even before we pay ourselves, I'm going to hire someone to do the mail. I'm going to hire someone to pull the books, to ship them out, because I only have one day a week to work on this. So I'm just going to go all in on finding as many books as I can for sale, have other people ship them out, and don't worry about, just even if they're just not as good as me, it doesn't matter. I'm just only going to do what brings us revenue, which is source books.
Telling you, if you got jewels here, really good jewels. How can our listeners get or find out more information about you, get in touch with you?
Well, you can. The best place is sevenfigurebooksales.com. Spell it out, you know, SEV, spell it out. Sevenfigurebooksales.com, and we have. I'm not sure what we're giving away when this will be out, but there'll be some type of good little nugget that you can download if you give us your email address, and you'll be able to follow us that way, and we'll have all kinds of you know, content going out to everyone that's subscribed.
Okay, terrific. And I'll have that in the show notes, so that won't be a problem. Greg, this is awesome. I really appreciate the time that you took for us. I know you're a busy guy. You need to get home to that little baby. And so just really appreciate the time, and thanks just so much.
No problem. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast. All the links mentioned today can be found at ecommercemomentum.com under this episode number. Please remember to subscribe and like us on iTunes.